It is Monday, December 30th of 2024. Chase, did you know today's like a big day for birthdays in the sports world? And by I mean big, I'm talking legends. Legends.
One that lives in the state of Ohio, who's from the state of Ohio. I'm quite aware of the king from Akron.
LeBron James, UC's own Sandy Koufax.
Another UC one too, I think.
Tiger Woods, Kenya Martin.
Oh, wow. I mean.
Were you thinking of Kenya Martin or were you thinking of somebody else?
I was in Kenya Martin, yeah. I saw the post too. I mean, wow.
You got me nervous there for a minute. Kenya Martin, Tiger Woods, Carson Wentz, who we need possibly to show up on Sunday afternoon, being Bengals fans. I'm Alex Frank. You can refer to me as Frankie, my stage name. Chase Younts, my co-host. We call this Waiting All Day for Sunday night because Chase and I are Sunday night football enthusiasts. Chase, you can, as you tell me, I can bring up any game from Sunday Night Football on NBC going all the way back to 2006 any week, and you can tell me the final score of the game. Is that true?
I can tell you the matchup. The score, a little dicey there, but I can pretty much tell you the matchup of just about every one of them. 272 in a row was last night with that Falcons-Commanders game.
272 in a row. So if I were to bring up 2010 Week 13, you could tell me who played that game.
I would tell you that it was the Steelers and the Ravens.
And you'd be right on that.
And the Steelers won in overtime.
And who made the game-changing defensive play in that game?
Honestly, I think it was Palomalu, but I really cannot remember.
It was Palomalu, and I'll give you bonus points if you can tell me who recovered the fumble.
Oh, my gosh. Lawrence Timmons?
You're actually very close. It's Lamar Woodley. So you had the first name starting with an L, so you were close there.
Very close.
As you can tell, Chase has a great memory. I like to think I do too.
You do.
Well, thank you. So Chase and I decided to start this podcast because next season is Sunday Night Football's 20th season on NBC. They also have Super Bowl 60, which is going to be amazing, which is in Santa Clara, the Bay Area. And so we're going to do this podcast not just during the season, but in the offseason as well, because as you know, Chase, football is a 24/7, 365, or in this year, 366 type of sport. And so we're going to talk about the Sunday Night Football games throughout the season, previews, recaps, our takeaways, original takeaways and analysis. Plus, in the offseason, we'll have fun topics like our favorite Sunday Night Football games in SNF history. We'll talk about division previews, schedules. We'll give our mock Sunday Night Football schedule, which mock schedules are so fun to do, in addition to mock drafts. So, but we still have quite a bit of season left in 2024, as evidenced by last night's Sunday Night Football game between the Atlanta Falcons and the Washington Commanders. The Commanders winning in overtime, 30-24. Jayden Daniels was absolutely fantastic. 3 passing touchdowns, 127 rushing yards, third most rushing yards in a game by a rookie. What is that? What is that stat, Chase? The third most,
I think,
rushing yards.
Like third most. Yeah, it was something like that. It was. I mean, he was running the football like crazy last night and just putting up big numbers.
For the record, for Jayden Daniels, 227 through the air. I'm a pull up that stat here shortly. 227 through the air, 127 on the ground. So 354 total. And in the biggest moments, he was absolutely sensational. I mean, first of all, Chase, before we get to Jayden Daniels, this game was flexed to Sunday Night Football. And it delivered.
Oh, it did.
That felt like a playoff game. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Oh, 100%. I mean, like we mentioned, the game got flexed. It was originally Dolphins-Browns, and we needed Cleveland to win. But that's a different story for later on the show. But, you know, when you have 2 rookie quarterbacks that were drafted in the top 10 of, this year's class facing off on Sunday Night Football, Michael Penix Jr., went to the national championship last year with Washington, the lefty quarterback, gunslinger. I mean, just watching those two duel back and forth with it. Again, in the first half, Atlanta really leaned on their running game with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier and everything else. But, I mean, in the second half, they really didn't have the ball a whole lot in the second half. They had nearly like 6-7 minutes of possession at one point in the second half and then didn't even touch the ball in overtime. But when Michael Penix needed to deliver and make big throws, he did. But then it just so happened that Jayden Daniels had the ball last. And when he needed to make the big-time plays, he made the big-time plays. He had 2 rookie quarterbacks that were just doing at it in the Sunday Night Football playoff atmosphere on the last Sunday of 2024. Alex, it doesn't get much better than that. I think you're muted, by the way.
Yes, I am muted. I guess they wanted me to say say this twice. So the fact that you had a Commanders player propose to his girlfriend after the game, that added something to it. Now, you got to love seeing those post-game proposals, Chase. But you're absolutely right. This game had absolutely everything. It had 2 great rookie quarterbacks that are both going to be really good in this league for 5 to 10 years, maybe even 15 years. You had star players on both sides of the ball. You had twists and turns. You had an early turnover lead to a score. Atlanta then goes up 10 points at halftime, 17 unanswered. And then in the second half, and this is where this game was so big and so crucial. And I didn't realize this until I heard it from Dave Hellman, who hosts the NFL on Fox podcast. If the Commanders had lost last night and had fallen to 10-6, I mean, I think earlier this week you might have said, okay, they're still going to get into playoffs, right? They're 10-6. They would have had to go to Dallas to win and get in. Yep. And that's why this game, despite being 10-5, was so crucial, because you needed to win on your home turf against a Falcons team that was, they're playing for something too, but they're starting a quarterback playing in his second career game, doesn't know what he doesn't know. And then at halftime, you're down by 10. Yeah. The margin of error in this league is about as close as I can get from my nails not touching each other, Chase. That
win on it right there.
Razor thin margin for error. And we saw it last night. Riley Patterson missing the field goal. And then the Commanders going straight down the field, converting at multiple third downs. I think they were like 10 of 13 on third down or something last night. Whatever it was.
Yeah, it was insane. I believe. Yeah, they were 6. They were 6 for 13 on third down, but they were 3 for 3. 3 for 3 on fourth down.
3 for 3 on fourth down. Well, it felt like they were 10 of 13.
It did. I mean, they were efficient as heck.
Okay, so in that sense, they were 10 of 17 on third or fourth down. Put it to you that way.
There you
go. Tells you how good. That tells you when Jaden Daniels and the Commanders needed to be perfect last night, they were. And for a rookie quarterback in week 17 to take his team down the field. By the way, the drive started with a false start.
It did.
Chase, he didn't flinch. He did not flinch.
And we talked about this a little bit last night, and we saw it a lot on Twitter. Just there were some very, very questionable microcosm calls that the officials were making on some holding calls, some false starts that didn't happen, some false starts that did happen that probably should have been called, but it was very interesting at that. You're Chris Collinsworth. There was at least 4 times yesterday. It was like, I don't think that's a hold. I don't think that's a hold. And it's just, some officiating crews are different in that regard. But I mean, you looked at the penalties yesterday. Washington won that game with 13 penalties.
That's amazing.
13 penalties. The Falcons had 4. And it just goes down to the fact that, again, you have to go, a bunch of obstacles, twists and turns, like you mentioned earlier. The Commanders overcame that. They found a way to win, and they found so many ways to win. And I'm not going to say some of the most improbable. I mean, week 8 was very improbable on the Hail Mary, but they found ways to win in the biggest moments possible this year. And that is why they're an 11-5 team sitting at the 6th seed right now, clinched a playoff berth.
And it's just the continuation of Jaden Daniels and his phenomenal rookie season, but also the Commanders as a whole. They've turned the page. I mean, they have turned the page. You and I are part of a generation that has never known the Commanders as a really good team. I mean, they've had some decent seasons. I mean, they were in the playoffs as a losing team, believe it or not, back in 2020. They were 9-7 in 2015 with Kirk Cousins, RG3 in 2012, and then you can even go back to 2007, 2005 when they made the playoffs with Mark Brunell and Jason Campbell. But in terms of being legitimate, in terms of being a serious threat in the playoffs, which I think they will be, and we'll talk about that coming up, Chase, when you look at the Commanders, they have completely rebranded themselves, and they've become a likable franchise again.
They really
And
have.
there's a generation back in the 80s that, with the Hogs and, all those great players, Doug Williams and Mark Ripien, who both won Super Bowls as quarterbacks of Washington. You can go back to when Joe Gibbs was the head coach. You can go to John Riggins. You can go to Art Monk. You can go to anybody on those Washington teams. Well, now you have Jaden Daniels. You have Terry McLaurin. Did you mention that Terry McLaurin had one catch for 5 yards last night and the Commanders still put up 500 yards of offense?
Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy? I mean, finding ways to win football games when there are so many things that are, I'm not going to say against you pretty much. I mean, it's unbelievable. They've found it's been unbelievable what the Commanders have been able to do this season.
You know what else I find interesting? And I was thinking about this before we came on. Think of Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury and where their reputations were and where they were at in their professional lives as coaches. They have come to Washington and they have almost revived their careers to a point. Like, you could argue the Washington Commanders are a wellness center for those guys. Did you write off Zach Ertz before the season started? Because I sure did.
I did too. And then you think about the Dan Quinn thing. He played against the team he took to a Super Bowl last night. Like that, yes. Nothing was mentioned about that at least I don't heard anything. But what he did yesterday, okay, he's a good DC, everything else, and he had the Super Bowl run and everything in Atlanta, but he was just, no, it was okay. He's getting a second chance. All right, let's see what happens with Dan Quinn. He's had a fantastic run this season. And then Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach in Arizona, great offensive coordinator. He goes back into a role where, he can really dial up plays on third down, creativity, quick passing game, everything else, efficient football. With a guy like Jaden Daniels, who knows he's going to make the right decision 9 out of 10 times, sometimes 10 out of 10 times. But again, it just goes back to these guys are in the right positions, and the coaches are performing at a very high level when it comes to a game plan. And then it comes down to the players making plays. And we have Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin and a slew of running backs and a defense that can get after the passer and a very aggressive secondary. You're going to be in a lot of football games. And the Commanders, 11 wins this season.
Yeah, like name their worst loss this season. Like, what's their worst loss? Week 1 at Tampa Bay?
And Tampa right now is probably going to make the playoffs. So yeah. I mean, it's a very short list considering 5 losses.
There's a famous quote from Bill Parcells: "You are what your record says you are." Okay. Well, the Commanders are 11-5. They only have 5 losses this season. 1 to Tampa Bay. They're in a win-and-in situation to win their division. 1 to Baltimore, winning in their division, the AFC North, this week. They lost to Pittsburgh. Okay, they lost by 1 yard practically and 1 point.
Yeah,
exactly. They lost to Philadelphia on the road on a short week. By the way, they led that game in the second half. And then, by the way, they beat Philly last week.
There you go.
And then, and don't anybody say, "Okay, Jalen Hurts was out." Did you not watch the Eagles yesterday?
They were rolling.
Yes.
They have a key out there throwing passes.
Yeah, Tanner McKee. And Big Dom helping Tanner McKee make sure he gets the ball from his first touchdown to A.J. Brown. Okay, so the Commanders are in. They're 11-5. If the season ended today, they'd be playing at the L.A. Rams on Wild Card Weekend, which talk about a really fun matchup. Rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels against a 16-year veteran in Matthew Stafford. But, Chase, is there a team that if you're a Commanders fan, you'd want to play in the playoffs? Like, is there a team that you'd rather play if you're a Commanders fan?
I would say the Rams. I know the Rams right now, their offense hasn't been really functioning a whole lot. Their defense has been very good, but I don't think they've seen a dynamic offense or quarterback such as Jaden Daniels this year. And the Commanders have gone on the road and they've been in games. They've won games. I don't think they're going to be fearing anything, fearing any team. Dan Quinn has won playoff games before. Cliff Kingsbury has, OC'd in some big games before. Jaden Daniels has played, in college, wasn't necessarily a ton of big games, but I think each time, as the season has gone down to the wire, week 16 has been big. Week 17 has been big. he just does not seem fazed by any of this stuff. And that's a rare trait at this young stage of a career. I think the Rams are the team the Commanders want to see. I don't think they want to see Tampa. I truly don't, because they played them week 1 and Tampa, obviously had their way and stuff. But Tampa's hot, man. They lost last week to Dallas, but Tampa's hot. I would not want to see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then Philly, I know if Jalen Hurts doesn't come back and everything else, I still wouldn't want to walk into Philadelphia in the playoffs. But again, if you are able to go into Philly and win that football game, man, you are a legend. But I'm going to say the Rams for Jaden Daniels and the Commanders' sake.
Okay, and that's fair. And I think because right now the Commanders are a 6 seed. Now, they could fall to 7. I don't know if they're going to play their starters this week at Dallas. I would hope they don't, honestly, because the last thing you want after such a big win for the first time in what feels like 33 years is to have a catastrophic injury. Now, if you fall to 7, honestly, so be it.
Pretty much.
Okay. Honestly, don't even worry about it. I mean, now then you'd be going to Philadelphia. But I'm going to say, and originally I was going to say Tampa Bay, because my thinking is Tampa Bay is going to overlook the Commanders. They're going to think, oh, well, we beat them week 1 handily, might I add, 37-20, and they're rolling. Baker Mayfield, say what you want about his maturity. He does have a little chip on his shoulder. He can get a little cocky sometimes. And I think there's a chance they could look past the Commanders. But at the same time, the Rams, they have won 5 in a row or whatever it is, 5 in a row.
Yeah.
They've won the division. They haven't looked great in doing so.
Really?
Here's the thing. Here's a crazy stat. Okay. The Rams put up 44 against the Bills. And we all said, well, see, look at Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. They just know how to get rolling late in the season. Okay. Since then, they've scored 44 points combined in their last 3 games. And had it not been for a weird interception last week against Arizona on Saturday, first off, they may not even win the game.
Yeah.
So maybe they are the team that can go into LA, and they're not going to be afraid to go up against Sean McVay. They're not going to be afraid to go up against Matthew Stafford and Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. They're not going to be afraid of the Rams defense, which is, for as good as they've been, they're still a very young defense, Chase, that hasn't had a lot of experience, in the playoffs primarily. So for me, I am going to say the Rams. Yes, it's a cross-country flight, but here's the thing too. Nobody's going to give you a chance. You're going to give yourselves a chance. We think the Commanders have a chance. They play the Rams. Philly's interesting because you've played them twice. You've played 2 close games. You've beaten them. There's pressure on Philly, I think, and there is every year. The fans put it on them if nobody else does. Philadelphia, I don't know how healthy Jalen Hurts is. The thing is, though, if Saquon Barkley gets rolling, which there's a more chance than not that he does get rolling, good night, Irene. So I'm with you. I think the Rams are the team that the Commanders fans should want to face. The problem is, if they rest their starters, I think Dallas is going to play for pride. Although after yesterday, who knows? I'll put it to you this way: if you can get the Rams, that's going to be a really interesting matchup. Really interesting matchup.
Definitely will be. It definitely will be.
All right. Let's go to the other side of this game, because as I'm watching that last drive in regulation, which, by the way, Michael Penix in the fourth quarter was outstanding.
He was.
On Sunday night. Outstanding. Okay? How much blame are you giving Raheem Morris for not calling a timeout on that last drive?
I'm giving a decent bit of blame, I would say. It's because, think about it. The end of the first half, they got points out of it, but they definitely could have used timeouts out of it. But they got points. They let a lot of seconds trickle down. They really did. I mean, Michael Penix completed 25, 30-yard pass the first play of that drive with less than 50 seconds to go. And, they were just taking their good old time, getting to the ball, setting up, everything else. It changed your entire game plan. You get that. I mean, again, with your rookie quarterback, second game, there's some stuff that hasn't been ironed out or hashed out or anything like that. But I mean, you got to use it to your advantage. I am very surprised they did not call a timeout with about 30 seconds left. I mean, they waited till that 15 seconds, and you are working with very minimalistic time right there when it comes to your play calling. Should we go to the sideline? Should we attack the middle of the field? If we attack the middle of the field, are we going to call a timeout immediately? Everything else. But, I mean, you have to use the timeouts to your advantage. They don't carry over to the next game. I'll tell you that. But they got it. I mean, Raheem Morris, I mean, he's been a head coach before. You can't find yourself in that situation where you're not using your timeouts in a critical situation like that with a rookie quarterback in a chance to continue to have that complete control over the division, controlling your destiny. And I think that was a good part in why they are no longer having that clinching scenario right now. So I think they should have used some of their timeouts, at least one of them with about 30 seconds left.
Yeah, there's no world where I can't say that I'm going to blame Raheem, where I'm not going to blame him because of what you just said. When you get that big play to start the drive, I mean, in my eyes, I'm calling timeout immediately or maybe like 5 seconds after the fact. And even that might be too much time. If you have only one timeout, maybe it's a little bit different. But okay, if you're not going to call a timeout, my thinking shifted to, okay, maybe you're going to spike it, which would have helped, but you would have still let a lot of time trickle down. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, they got an opportunity to kick a game-winning field goal, which was luck. And if they had made it, we would have said, okay, you created your own luck. Great. Don't do that again. But the kick was no good. Now, there's no guarantee that the Falcons would have been closer. There's no guarantee that closer kick would have gone in. Yes. But you have got to manage that better if you're Raheem Morris. I don't think he's going to get fired over that or this season. If the Falcons win next week, it's their first winning season since 2017. Dan Quinn was still the head coach at the time. Matt Ryan was still the quarterback. So you're not going to I don't think that this is a fireable offense. This is a teaching moment, okay? We know Raheem Morris can coach. He was a terrific defensive coordinator with the LA Rams, as painful as that Super Bowl is for us as Bengals fans. But you have to get better because you're a head coach. You are now managing the game in addition to still specializing on your side of the ball, which is defense, which I'll give the Falcons defense a lot of credit in the fourth quarter. The Commanders are driving down the field. It's a 7-point game, and they got that. I'm sorry, it was a 4-point game. Excuse me, 21-17. The Commanders got the touchdown. The Falcons defense bailed out because of a holding penalty. They still bowed up, held the Commanders to a field goal. Falcons tie the game, and then Chase. I mean, when the Falcons tie the game, you're thinking, okay, well, Jane Daniels has the ball, minute, however much time left. You're thinking, okay, they can go down and kick a field goal. Falcons defense got after Jane Daniels on that last drive the Commanders had in regulation. Exactly. So you have the Commanders on the ropes. Call a timeout. Look at their psychology. Look at them. Like, oh my gosh. We better get the stop here, or else we may not go to the playoffs. Like, that's how much was weighing on that drive.
Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so for me, as I'm watching that, I'm literally watching the game. I'm like, timeout. Okay. Rookie quarterback. Okay, I'm not going to blame him. Could he have spiked the ball? Sure. But again, if you spike the ball, you waste a down.
Exactly.
Okay. Look, I'm not going to put the complete blame on Raheem Morris. I'm not. But I am putting a lot on it because you could have gotten closer. What are you trying to save your timeouts for?
You're not taking them with you to the next game. That's
exactly.
I mean, and you look at it. I was looking at the play-by-play of this. The ball was snapped with 40 seconds left, and Penix hit Mooney for a 25-yard gain. And the next snap wasn't until the next snap was over by the time there was 17 seconds on the clock.
23 seconds.
It's insane. That's insane.
That's over half the time.
You can't let that happen. You can't. I mean, in that situation, again, he's tackled in bounds. Call a timeout. Call the timeout. You have one timeout to work with, but you have
two. You had two.
Oh, well, that's true. I mean, you call it. Yeah, you know what I mean. You call the timeout. Yeah. You have one, and then you have 3 downs to work. But still, you have timeouts. And you have field to work with. You can work over the middle of the field. You don't have to worry about the time crunch and everything else. Just it's baffling to me how that played out.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it totally is. Now, first-year head coach, rookie quarterback. Okay, you can learn from that.
Yep.
And let me ask you this: how bright is Michael Penix Jr.'s future in Atlanta?
If they can create a good offensive line around him, and the offensive line didn't play bad at all last night, I'll tell you that. But I think it's bright. I really think it is. Bijan Robinson being there really helps them because of the run game and everything else. So it takes a little bit of the load off of Penix. But man, I mean, he is a gunslinger. He is a left-handed gunslinger, and they keep that group around him. I mean, again, a young quarterback where they don't have to spend a whole lot of money. Obviously, they're paying Kirk the money, and that, it's a different story in the offseason. But I mean, the future's bright for Penix. There were some throws that he missed, but it was, some were a little off, some were, behind and front and all that stuff. But when he needed to make those throws, he made those throws, and he played really well last night. I'm excited to see what he's got going forward.
He is a bigger version of Tua. I mean, look at how he's built.
Pretty much.
Look at how he's built. Now, is his accuracy still an issue? Sure, you can work on that, though. Look with Josh Allen. Josh Allen wasn't accurate his first 2 seasons. Now he's going to maybe win MVP this year. So when I look at the Falcons, and you mentioned it, okay, that offensive line is solid. It's a solid unit. Chris Lindstrom, the leader of that offensive line, that's a solid unit to work with there. And their weapons are so young and so good already. I mean, Darnell Mooney has become a wide receiver 2 at the top tier of them in the NFL. Drake London's underrated, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Bijan Robinson's a beast.
Man.
I love that guy. Kyle Pitts is a really good tight end, his ceiling. So when I look at this offense, now, obviously you have some decisions. You're going to have some decisions to make this offseason. But what the Falcons want to be is they want to be driven through their running game, okay, and their offensive line. Well, you can do that with Bijan Robinson and your offensive line that's really good. Now, whatever weapons they bring back, I know Pitts is already into year 4. It'll be interesting to see what they do with him. Drake London's I think he's in year 4 as well. So it'll be interesting to see if they can bring both of them back. But when I look at the Falcons roster and I see a defense that's young and flying around that has some really good pieces, they have a Zach Robinson's a good offensive coordinator. Raheem Morris, I mean, yes, last night was a major error, but he's still a really good a really good coach. He's a leader. He understands the Falcons organization. I mean, this team was 6-3 in the middle of November. Yep. We may not remember that because of, what's happened recently, but this is the same head coach who said, okay, we just won a game, but I'm going to make a quarterback change to give this team the best chance I think it has to make the playoffs. And they darn near are going to this season. So Michael Penix, if he's able to become more accurate, if he's able to develop, if he's able to take that second-year leap, he's going to be a really good quarterback in this league. And the Falcons offense, to me, they can do so much more because he's young, he's athletic, he's versatile, he can absolutely sling it. He has a tremendously bright future. I agree with you. In Atlanta, Michael Penix Jr., which, I mean, it's crazy how, a lot of people are like, what are the Falcons doing on draft night earlier this year? Well, I think they clearly knew what they were doing.
Yeah. I mean, when it came to the quarterback decision again, money is always going to be a topic of conversation when, it comes to bringing in a guy like Kirk Cousins, who is, obviously toward the, I'm not going to say the back nine of his career, but he's on it.
Yeah.
I mean, money is a topic of discussion, but when you if the Falcons have that vision and, they obviously drafted Michael Penix Jr., there you go. That last night, that's a glimpse of what you could see going forward. And, if they run the football well, play action, you let the gunslinger do his thing. The Falcons should be in this run for quite a while.
One thing I think you hit on there, the infrastructure around you. When you have an elite running game, which the Falcons have, when you have a good offensive line, that takes the pressure off of you as a rookie quarterback. And we saw that this year with Justin Herbert and the Chargers when Jim Harbaugh got there. I'm trying to think of where else we've seen that. You can look at the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, how they brought him along. Now, Lamar Jackson being the elite running quarterback that he is, help with that. But still, when you have that around you, those pieces and those running and that running game and an offensive line that's going to protect you, you have the ability to develop as a quarterback in the NFL. Very similar to, we're going to go to him in a minute. Look at Jordan Love. The Packers had Aaron Jones last year to help him out. Matt LaFleur is a terrific offensive head coach in the NFL. They have all those receivers. And you're in an organization that, is a breeding ground for quarterbacks, for crying out loud, with Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and now Jordan Love. So Penix Jr. definitely does have the ability to play in the NFL. We saw that last night. Second career start on the road for the first time in primetime, for crying out loud, against the best rookie quarterback in this year's draft class, Jaden Daniels, who's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jaden Daniels' ceiling is way up here. He might win an MVP, and I'm talking as soon as next year. That's how good he is. But you went toe-to-toe with him, a quarterback who kind of got overlooked last year because there were how many quarterbacks taken ahead of Penix Jr.? You had Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May. So there were three, and there were two behind him, and I think those two are both still really good. We haven't seen McCarthy yet, but Bo Nix may be going to the playoffs. So, last night's game had everything. To put a bow on it, on this waiting all day for Sunday night podcast. That game had everything, and I hope we see that matchup many, many more times over the next 10 to 15 years. But Chase, that wasn't the only game this week. Week 17, which, believe it or not, started all the way back on Christmas Day on Netflix, which has been around since 1998, the year I was born, and now broadcasted 2 NFL games and did very well, I thought. So I wrote down 5 takeaways that I have from Week 17, and you can add any other takeaways that you feel. So let's get into these. So my top takeaway, and I'm going to pose it in the form of a question.
Okay.
Was yesterday's Packers-Vikings game, which was a really very interesting game, was that more about how good the Vikings are, or about how maybe we're a little concerned about the Packers going into the playoffs?
I think it's more about the Vikings, because the way Sam Darnold played yesterday, he was unbelievable. He had a career day. And, when you look at what Minnesota is, especially coming into the season, they drafted J.J. McCarthy. Kirk Cousins goes to Atlanta. They signed Sam Darnold from San Francisco. I was even saying it myself, but I don't know what Minnesota's going to do. They're going to have to run the football, play action. They have a great receiving core, and hopefully their defense is going to step up and play really good football. Everything and more has happened for them this season. They're a team that plays with their hair on fire, but they play so under control on offense. Kevin O'Connell, a genius on the offensive side of the ball. Brian Flores, going to get head coaching calls, I would say. It's what Minnesota's been able to do this season. They are for real. And I just kept thinking, man, they're bluffing. They're 14-2. It's insane to think. Again, Green Bay, they got to figure some things out, because they were struggling in the first 3 quarters of that game. But I still wouldn't want to see Green Bay in the postseason if they, figure some things out. And you saw in that fourth quarter, again, they made their way back in that football game. But I think it said more about Minnesota and how good they are.
I agree, because, and the way you said it, because there have been so many times this season where I thought, okay, they're going to fall off. this is where we really see Sam Darnold for who he is as a quarterback. You know what kind of quarterback he is? He's a really good quarterback, Chase.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
As
you were, now, does it help when you have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson and Aaron Jones and, all those guys on offense? Sure. But you still got to go out there and sling it. The play for me this season that said to me, okay, this Vikings team has some potential, was that 97-yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson in week 2 against the 49ers. That throw came out of the sky, practically. I thought that was Brett Favre throwing that to Greg Jennings on Monday Night Football week 8 of 2007, one of my favorite Mike Tirico calls in his career. So when I watched and it's not just that, you put it so succinctly when you said they play with their hair on fire but under control on offense. Well, how about on defense? Because you have Jonathan Grenard, Blake Cashman, Andrew Van Ginkel, Harrison Smith in your secondary, Cam Bynum in your secondary. This Vikings defense is so tough to play against because you don't know what they're going to do. There's so many moving parts to that defense. You see Bearcat Ivan Pace Jr. has done well his first 2 seasons on that side of the ball. The Minnesota Vikings going into this season, I was like you. I said, okay, they might be the best 5-12 team in NFL history. They may be 15-2 by the end of Sunday night, Chase. 15-2.
Can't fathom it. I really can't. There's a lot of things.
They won 9 in a row. They won. Don't cut you off there. They won 9 in a row. Good. ... Without their starting left tackle.
Unbelievable. I literally have no words to that. I don't.
Every time that you think it, and we said it, okay, they were going to lose the Lions in week 7. They did, but they played them pretty dang tough. They go into LA and they lose by 10. Okay, no big deal. And they were down 7-0 the Colts, and we're like, yeah, this is where it's all going to catch up to them. It hasn't. They go into Seattle last week. Well, they're not going to go into Seattle and beat the Seahawks, the 12th man. They did. Well, Green Bay's hot coming in. They're top 10 in scoring and yards per game on both sides of the ball. Sure, this is where, they're looking ahead to Detroit. It's 27-10 in the fourth quarter. Yep. So, and by the way, it's not like they're saying to Sam Darnold, just go manage the game. Don't lose us the game. Chase, did you see that on the last drive? He was slinging the ball. He was slinging it.
Dots, darts. Everything.
Trust your quarterback and your playmakers. That's what Minnesota's doing. Who wants to see this team in the playoffs?
I wouldn't. I don't think anybody wants to see this team. And they might be the 1 seed for all we know.
Yeah, and you don't want to go to Minnesota. Look, this isn't the Metrodome, which was loud. We know that. But as Dan Horde, our great friend and my mentor, once said to me, he said it to me earlier this season, that that US Bank Stadium is the loudest stadium he's been in. And you think about all the loud stadiums in the NFL. Chase, I've been in New Orleans. That stadium is loud. Mm-hmm. You can name any other stadium that you hear on TV or that you've been to. And name the loudest stadium you've been to, personally.
Man. I've only been to about 4 different NFL stadiums. Okay. So yeah, it's a short list. Paycor playoff game, but yeah, I digress.
That's another loud one, but
pretty loud, but it doesn't compare to New Orleans and everywhere else.
You have a passionate fan base like the Minnesota Vikings do, and you have to go there for a playoff game. Good luck. And here's what I'll say about Green Bay. Because I am a little concerned, because here's the crazy thing. They've lost 5 games this season. 4 of them are to Detroit and Minnesota.
Yep.
Fathom that if you can. By the way, both losses to Minnesota were by 2 points each. And they lost to Detroit by 3 and by 10 earlier this year, although there was a pick 6 in that game, so that game could have been maybe a little closer than the score suggests. They also lost to Philly in week 1, a game they could have won. But the problem is, you've lost 5 games to the elite of the elite in the NFC. And when you've played Minnesota, you have fallen behind because you simply were either A, not prepared for Brian Flores' defense, or B, you couldn't adjust to his defense and what they were trying to do.
Yeah. And you could also, you mentioned the fact of Okay, yeah, they lost 5 games to 3 teams and the elites of Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay. Philadelphia. But guess what? To get to where you want to get to, you're going to have to see them again. So you got to figure out a way to do that. You got to get through wild card weekend, and then you're going to play one of those teams most likely. And then you have to be ready to go from the start, quick start, and then continue that momentum and that high level preparation and play throughout a game. We all, again, like I said, mention the fact that you lost to the 3 elites in the NFC, but you have to play them and beat them to get to where you want to go, and multiple of them.
You're exactly right. You are exactly right. Because what's their best win this season? Seattle? Which, I mean, given's a good win. You beat Seattle by 17 on the road in a place where you hadn't won since 2008. Fine, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But what other win's good? San Francisco? Without basically their entire offense?
They won the games they needed to win. But
which is good. That's half the battle.
But the games that you have to win to get to the pinnacle, they haven't.
Exactly. I mean, they did beat the Rams in Week 5, which turns out to be which is a really good win. But the Rams were still kind of figuring things out at the time. I mean, if they played the Rams now, I think it'd be a different story.
I think so too. It's going to be tough for Green Bay in the playoffs. They have to really tighten things up, and Jordan Love's going to have to hope for another Toyotathon. That's all I'll say.
Exactly. If you're Nick Sirianni, are you playing Saquon Barkley next week, knowing he's 101 yards away from breaking Eric Dickerson's record for rushing yards in a season?
That doesn't come around every day. They were talking about, okay, if the team's mindset is to get Saquon that record, I think you leave it to the guys in the locker room. I think you do. If they want to get Saquon that record and Saquon wants to get their record, okay, cool. And it's against the Giants. That adds another thing to that list. You're not getting the bye. You're going to play the next week. A week of rest isn't terrible, but you might want to play your guys a little bit. I think you try to get them that record because that doesn't happen every day. It really doesn't. And if Saquon and that entire group of guys in the locker room is committed to getting him that record, I'd go on through with it.
It's not just that. If you were watching Get Up on ESPN this morning, Dan Orlovsky was talking about how it's not just Saquon Barkley's record. It's Lane Johnson's, it's Cam Jurgens, it's the entire offensive line.
Yep.
And the other thing I think you have to think about is if you do rest your starters because you're more focused on winning the Super Bowl, but then let's say you lose early in the playoffs, like you're making a decision not just because of, what you're ultimately trying to achieve this season. This is about team morale. This is about, we signed this guy because we think he's a generational type running back. I mean, 9 months ago, they signed him. Now he's on the brink of breaking a 40-year-old record held by one of the greatest running backs in NFL history. So, the last time we saw somebody come remotely close was Adrian Peterson.
2012.
And Saquon Barkley is the best running back in probably since Adrian Peterson. You could debate Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey if you want to. But the fact that you're playing the Giants, who the Giants weren't willing to pay a little bit more money to keep you in New York, when you wanted to stay in New York, you have the opportunity to, in front of GM Joe Shane and head coach Brian Campbell, to make them look like complete fools and idiots. Don't think Saquon Barkley's not thinking about that. Yes, he can say Super Bowl is my ultimate goal or whatever. Chase, you're on the brink of history. In a year where, and this is what's so great about the NFL, look at all the great quarterbacks, look at all the great running backs, look at all the great wide receivers. The NFL is in a great place right now in terms of offensive prolificness and entertainment. Okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's turned into and this has been, I think, the year of the running back revitalization. I didn't even cut you off there, but I think the running back position has been revitalized, especially with the two guys in Saquon and Derrick Henry that went to new teams with guys who are running quarterbacks and they're averaging over 100 rushing yards a game, and here's Saquon 100 yards away from the record.
I mean, look at what Derrick Henry's doing in Baltimore. Look at what Bijan Robinson is doing.
Kyron Williams.
Williams. I mean, Chase Brown might get there next year for all we know.
Yeah, I mean, it's the running back position has been revitalized in football. It's crazy how it goes year by year.
It is.
And Josh Jacobs as well in Green Bay. Like it changes an entire team when you can run the football. When you have a generational running back on your team, the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit if you have a very good quarterback, and that's what Philly has. That's what Baltimore has. That's what Green Bay has. Exactly. That's what Cincinnati has.
All right. This next question, I'm laughing because I'm very interested in your answer to this question. So, all right. Okay, this is actually a 2-part question.
Okay.
Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? Who's your MVP right now? Or is it Joe Burrow?
Solidified answer will be once the regular season is over. If the Bengals make the playoffs, give Joe Burrow the MVP. If we don't make the playoffs, people give voter fatigue for Lamar Jackson, but what he's done this season has been unbelievable. He's not, and again, it's like he's running the football well, but he's not having to do that a whole lot. He's thrown for 39 touchdown passes. He's done it in a completely different way. A lot of things, Ravens receivers are wide open a lot with, some of the schematics and some of the quick guys they have on the perimeter and stuff. But Lamar Jackson extending plays, as we've known. Josh Allen he's played fantastic this season. It's a tough question because I really want the Bengals to make the playoffs so Joe Burrow gets the MVP. So I will say I think the best quarterback this year in football, no bias attached to it, has been Joe Burrow, because I don't know how you can watch the game of football and say that this guy is not a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the game. I really don't know how you can watch that. I believe it might have been Dan Orlovsky that said this a while ago. Someone said this, but if you're looking at Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, those guys are outliers of the quarterback position. It's like, you should not be able to do those things, but they're doing those things because they are completely different. They're just different. When you're looking at playing the quarterback position the right way, controlling the controllables in structure and system and all that stuff, if you're telling your kid, okay, say your kid walks up, he's like, hey, Dad, I want to play quarterback. Who's the first person in the league that you want to show currently? Just Joe Burrow.
Exactly. And you saw what Vance Joseph, who, by the way, used to coach with the Bengals under Marvin Lewis. You saw what Vance Joseph said earlier this week. He said it's like we're going up against Manning or Brady. And Chase, Manning and Brady played the quarterback position the way it's prototypically played, right? Yep. From the pocket. But you also got to be able to move in the pocket. When Joe Burrow's running, he's looking to make a play down the field. And more often than not, he does. And to your point, if the Bengals get in, which, Lord in heaven, maybe the football gods are up to something.
Please.
Maybe they're up to something. Because if the Bengals get in and they go to Buffalo and beat Buffalo, he's winning MVP.
If again, you have the thing overreaction Monday. If we get in, he's beating Buffalo. I'm sorry. I'm calling it here, calling the shot. Okay. If he gets in, we're beating Buffalo. That's a lot. That's a lot.
You can't be afraid to say that.
That's a lot because it's happened before.
Yes. He beat him by 17 with 3 backup offensive linemen. Yep. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, Orlando Brown Jr. didn't even play in that game.
Played for the red and gold team, the Chiefs. Won it that year. But yeah.
But okay, right now I'm giving it to Josh Allen.
I would tend to agree on that.
And here's my thing: I love Lamar Jackson. And look, I'm a Bengals fan telling you this. That tells you a lot about the kind of fan.
I agree. I think Lamar's great.
How can you not?
Yeah,
Lamar Jackson. Here's the thing, Chase. I was thinking about this earlier this week. You know what he's done the last 2 years? Not only has he won an MVP and may win another one this year. Everything we said about Lamar Jackson that were downfalls about him. Well, he can't throw from the pocket. Okay, he set a career high in completion percentage again this year. Well, he can't stay healthy. He's going to play 17 games this year. Oh, by the way, he played 16 games last year, and the Ravens had the 1 seed wrapped up before their Week 18 game last year, so he rested that game. And name me another critic, a critique of Lamar Jackson. Well, what? You can't. Okay, exactly. Well, you can't win marquee games or primetime games. Yes, he can. Yes, he can.
Mm-hmm.
I computed it earlier this week. His record is ridiculous in primetime games or 425 games or standalone games or whatever games are like the number 1 or number 2 games on a network in a given week. His record is absurd in those games. When the lights go on, he puts on a show. I mean, that was evident. That was evident against the Chiefs in week 1, where he threw for nearly 300 and rushed for over 100. And he darn near won that game for the Ravens. But Josh Allen, Chase, this year, you heard it all off season. This was supposed to be the down-to-earth year. This was supposed to be the rebuilding year. Okay, they won their division on December 1st.
Yeah, I don't know what there is to rebuild. There's nothing to rebuild.
Like, I'm sorry. Tua hasn't proven anything yet. I'm sorry. I couldn't trust the Jets. Aaron Rodgers hadn't even played essentially a series with them coming into this season. Yep. The Patriots, we didn't think they were going to be that good. I know the Bengals lost to them, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, I mean, Keon Coleman and Matt Collins and Dalton Kincaid, and you can name me anybody on that offense. Josh Allen has made chicken salad out of a word I can't say on this podcast, but he has made sausage from scratch, basically. And if you haven't seen how that's made, it's actually a really cool process. How sausage is made from scratch. And I love me some sausage in a bun, whatever. That's what Josh Allen has done this season. That's what he has done this season. It's like, okay, they got rid of Stephon Diggs, and they said, well, no way he's going to be as good without his number 1 weapon. Chase, you get rid of a headache, you're free, right? You can think clearer. You can do so many more things, right?
So much. And you know what? They have a run game.
Oh, yeah, that too. Well, that's and they have Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator, so there's that.
There's another thing. It's like, I mean, that's what they did the last half of last year. That's why they were able to turn around and win the division last year. They ran the football well and play action and everything else. And Stephon wasn't really a part of the game plan that much, but they were still winning. And I think they saw that, okay, they have a shiny object, but we want to win. And we got a bunch of guys in there that want to win football games regardless of how it's done. And that's what Buffalo's done. That's why they're 13-3.
Yeah. And by the way, Josh Allen is a running quarterback, and Ken Dorsey was trying to make him not be that. Yeah, we all know how that turned out.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, like that play he made against the Chiefs, which Sean McDermott has been criticized for being conservative throughout his head coaching career. Well, there you go. He rolled the dice on 4th down. It worked. Biggest win of the season for any team in the NFL. So I'm still saying Josh Allen. But if Joe Burrow goes into Buffalo and throws for, let's say, 350 and 4 touchdowns, heck yeah, I'm giving him the MVP.
Honestly, I'd give him if he makes it. I think I'd give it to him.
All right. Last question before we get to Week 18 Sunday Night Football, which is going to be a pretty big game. If you, by the way, that stat on Jaden Daniels. So Jaden Daniels, broke RG3's record for most rushing yards by a rookie quarterback. He now has 864. He joined Michael Vick as the only quarterback in NFL history, only quarterbacks in NFL history to have 225 plus passing yards, 3 plus passing touchdowns, and 125 plus rushing yards in a single game. And I think his 127 was the 3rd most rushing yards by a rookie quarterback in NFL history. It was either that or was the most rushing yards by a quarterback in NFL history. It's one of those two things. They had it, I think, on Sunday Night Football Final last night, so I may not have that stat right in front of me, which, by the way, for you Sunday Night Football enthusiasts like yours truly and Chase here, if you haven't watched Sunday Night Football Final with Jack Collinsworth, Tony Dungy, and Rodney Harrison, terrific postgame show. It really is.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
I started watching it this year. It's a really, really good in-depth show.
It definitely is. Definitely.
Okay. So last question I have for you. How dangerous are the Chargers and Rams going into the playoffs this year?
Rams pick it up offensively. They're they're pretty dangerous. Just depends on who they play. I know we talked about them earlier. And then looking at the Chargers on the flip side, granted they played the Patriots, but you also saw Justin Herbert throw the ball a bunch, and Justin Herbert still looks very sharp. They can win the game simplistically when he throws it like 21, 22 times. They run the football. They're getting J.K. Dobbins back. I mean, this is a pretty dangerous football team. The Chargers are. They, at the moment, would go to Baltimore.
Oh, how awesome would that be?
Oh, I mean, that would at this moment, I think that would be the SNF playoff game at 8:15.
Really? You think so?
I think so. Harbaugh. I don't think they pass that up, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with you.
I don't think they pass it up unless Joe Burrow makes the playoffs and the Bengals, and it would be Bills-Bengals. So they would have a tough decision to make right there.
So what you're telling me is we could get Bengals, Bills, and Chargers, Ravens in the same weekend, and
we could also get Lions, Rams. We could get the reverse Jared Goff to Los Angeles.
Oh my!
I don't know who they pick. I don't know what NBC would pick at that rate. I am so in for the chaos.
Can they get all six?
I mean, I would love it. Would love it. Just put them in one stadium and just rack out game after game after game. But off that point, I think the Chargers have a better chance than I think the Rams and it sounds crazy to say with the Rams being a division winner and a home team in the playoffs and stuff like that. But the Chargers, I think they can win anywhere. They can run the football. They can play great defense. If Herbert needs to throw the football and everything else, they can do that. If they have to go to Baltimore, they gave Baltimore a game, so maybe they could get them. It's going to be tough. If they have to go to Pittsburgh, I think they could definitely beat Pittsburgh. If they go to Houston, I think they could beat Houston.
They could definitely beat Houston.
So I think anybody could beat Houston in this playoff field right now. But I think the Chargers are more dangerous than the Rams coming out of LA. Okay,
that's fair. That's very fair. But here's what I'll say to that, okay? The Rams have been there before.
There you go.
Okay, yeah, they've been there. And that's why, and you know this from last year. Remember last year when we were getting ready for Rams-Lions, which, I mean, that playoff game was so fun to watch.
Fantastic.
I mean, that environment was unbelievable.
It was so good that NBC had to pick it up week one. I mean.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and here's the other thing, too. And to that point, I'll deviate a little bit.
Yeah.
What made that Sunday night game so great, Rams-Lions, aside from the game itself, in the regular season this year, I mean, that game was so great.
Yep.
Okay. Back and forth, overtime. Lions run the ball straight down the Rams' throats, win the game in overtime. But it was the first time since 2016 when they went to Arizona week one Sunday Night Football, where the Sunday night week one game wasn't in Dallas or Green Bay or New England or LA or Dallas or New York. Nah, we're going to Detroit. You know, we're going, born and raised South Detroit, taking the midnight train up there. Don't stop believing, Chase Younts. That's where we're going because that's the best matchup for week one. They said, okay, the Lions proved, that they're a good team. Well, let's see if they really are this year. Oh, they are.
There you go.
Okay, but here's my thing. Chase. Okay,
all right.
With the Rams, they've been there, right? Stafford, McVay. And again, this is what I said last year. The Lions, they're a great story, but the Rams have been there. That's going to be a lot of pressure on Detroit. And give the Lions credit. They won the game. But the Rams have Kupp and Stafford and, just so many guys that have been there before that I think at home, now, they're good enough to win a home playoff game. That much I know. If they have to go on the road to face Philly, or if they have to go to Detroit or Minnesota, especially if they have to go on like a short week that's Sunday to Saturday or Monday to Sunday, that's a lot to ask for.
Oh, yeah.
And this defense, Chase, this defense is still really, really young. They're good. I think they're really good. But they're still so young on that side of the ball. The Chargers are really interesting. I saw your message. Okay, so we got about, 20 or 15. Gosh, we've been talking so long. It's already 4:09. What are we doing here? 4:09 on the East Coast for listening to this. And that's totally fine. Okay, so we got about 15 minutes left. But anyway, my thing with the Chargers is, you mentioned it. If they get J.K. Dobbins back, they can run the football. And, I know Justin Herbert's never won a playoff game. I don't think that I really take a whole lot of stock in that because he's been so good and so efficient this season. He doesn't turn the ball over. He makes the smart plays, and he can run the ball himself. And the Chargers defense, if they punch you in the mouth early, like let's say you remember this when they played the Ravens 6 years ago in the playoffs. The Ravens, that was Lamar's rookie season. The Chargers punched the Ravens in the mouth early. That's why they were able to win the game. They took away the Ravens' ability to run the football. If they can do that this year, if they go to Baltimore, I'm telling you right now, Lamar's going to start pressing.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is press against a secondary that has a guy like Derwin James on the back end.
Don't want it.
By the way, the Chargers offense, 34 and 40 points their last 2 games. It's like ever since the free kick chase, they've been electric offensively.
They definitely had. They turned on the switch, and the voltage and electricity has really surged throughout this entire offense. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah. All right. Chase, is next week's Sunday Night Football game the biggest regular season game in NFL history?
Yes. Yes. I've had conversations with.
Oh God! Okay, here we go.
Yes. It's the first time where we've had a matchup in the regular season of 2 teams with 13 plus wins.
It's ridiculous.
You might see 2 teams with 14 wins in this game, pending if the Lions take care of business against the Niners tonight on Monday Night Football.
They should.
The games for the 1 seed, the loser would be possibly a 14-3 5 seed, going to more than likely Tampa. This has Coach of the Year possibly involved with this.
Ooh.
This has a Sam Darnold legacy game attached to this. Jared Goff potential legacy game attached to it. There's so much that is into this game right here. It is unbelievable. The fact that NBC started in Detroit and now they're going to end the regular season in Detroit. I don't know if there's anything better. You're gonna have these 2 quarterbacks that if you would have told me 5 years ago that Jared Goff would be playing Sam Darnold for the 1 seed in the NFC, I'd slap you silly.
And by the way, they're in the same division. This is a divisional game.
It's a divisional game, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, both teams have 14 wins potentially.
In the last time I think we saw anything close to the winner gets the 1 seed, loser drops to the 5 because of divisional stuff was the Niners Seahawks back in 2019 when the Seahawks were stopped just a couple inches short of the end zone and the Niners won that road game.
Well, if this game Sunday night is anything like that Sunday night game, oh gosh, get the popcorn.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The roof off of Ford Field's going to literally blow away and drive off. Like it's insane.
It's going to be in Canada by the end of the night.
It might be in northern Canada by the end of the night.
No, yeah.
I tell you, like it is unbelievable. The magnitude of this matchup again, and also the receivers in this. Justin Jefferson, who's second in the receiving categories in the league. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's also up there in catches and everything else, contributing pieces on the receiving core. Jordan Addison, Jameson Williams, tight ends. TJ Hawkinson used to play for Detroit. Yeah. Sam Laporta,
who the Lions traded to Minnesota 2 years ago.
Exactly, an in division trade. This is another thing. We love these stats. This is the first time, since realignment that Detroit and Minnesota will play a night game. They're the only team, divisional duo in the National Football League that has not played a Sunday night, Monday night, or Thursday night game since 2002, since divisional realignment.
I don't understand
the biggest regular season game.
Yeah, and I don't understand how that hasn't happened.
I don't know.
You follow NFL Nerd. I know you do, Chase. I'm nerding on NFL on Twitter. I'm sure you play their mock schedule game in the offseason, and you figure out where you rank. I was ranked like 180 out of 261 last year. That was fun. Anyway, you didn't even mention this, Chase. It's Ben Johnson against Brian Flores. I mean, what those guys?
O'Connell versus Aaron Glenn. I mean, it's.
Oh gosh, I didn't even think about that.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
By the way, Aiden Hutchinson isn't even playing in this game. Can you imagine if he was?
Oh my goodness! I mean, and David Montgomery's not either. I mean,
oh gosh, Cincinnati native, David Montgomery. Yep. I mean, but hey, look at what Jahmyr Gibbs is doing. This you may remember this game in 2007 when the Patriots played the Colts in Week 9 of 2007.
4-15.
Yes. I mean, this was the Patriots were 8-0. Are they 8-0? Yeah, they were 8-0. The Colts were 7-0.
Okay.
Yeah, the Colts were on a bye the previous week, but they were literally making shirts that said Super Bowl 41 and a half. And then the game itself was great.
Yeah.
The Patriots came back from down 10 in the fourth quarter to win that game. So that's the last regular season game I can remember with this much magnitude and this much riding on it. Got about 10 minutes left, but I mean, it's going to be awesome. And by the way, here's the best part about this is, like, remember the Bills-Lions game earlier this year? We were so excited for that game. And a big reason why for me was neither team has won a Super Bowl. And there's no reason to not like either of these teams, the Vikings or the Lions. Minnesota has an awesome fan base, great organization, a lot of history, a lot of great players, a lot of, nicknames, Purple People Eaters and Randy Moss and all those, and all the history. And then you have the Lions, who have become, the darlings of America, the NFL. They play in the Midwest. Chase, this is two Midwestern teams that have never won the Super Bowl. The Lions haven't even been. Two teams that, the Vikings haven't been in the Super Bowl since John Madden was smiling from ear to ear, hoisted on the Raiders' shoulders back in 1977.
Oh, my gosh.
So, this is going to be a special, special game. But real quick, which team needs to win this game more?
Detroit.
Why? That's a good answer, by the way.
Again, it does show that either game is going to be in a dome, so like when it comes to weather factors and stuff like that, I don't think weather's going to have anything but home field advantage does. Detroit has lost 2 games at home this season, and they were against, Tampa and Buffalo. They're undefeated on the road, but when the games and the magnitude of the game rises, you want to be with that home crowd. You want that fourth quarter when you're up 7 points and it's the final drive of the game. You want your crowd to be into it and everything else. So I think Detroit needs it badly, just from the fact that they need rest, and they could get a couple guys back for that divisional round game. And the wild thing about this matchup is, talking about the winner gets the 1, the loser gets the 5. There's a chance that if the 2 seed and the 3 seed win and the 5 seed beats the 4, we could have this matchup 2 weeks later.
Oh my God.
We could have it a 10, a third time the charm.
Dick Ebersol, if you're listening, pick it up in the divisional round. Sunday at 3:00 in Ford Field. That's Sunday.
Pick it up again. Pick it up
Sunday,
again.
January 19th. Anyway, I agree with you, because the Lions have not had a week off since week 5. And think about the physical games they played in. They played Minnesota, which, by the way, the week 7 game was fantastic.
Oh, great.
They played Green Bay twice, 2 physical games. They played Houston, had to come back from that, and one of maybe the ugliest win in Lions history.
Yeah.
They played Chicago twice, 2 physical games, including the emotional win on Thanksgiving. They played that high-scoring game with Buffalo. They're going to play the night against San Francisco. They're going to be playing this game on a short week, Detroit, and they're flying back all the way from San Francisco. So they absolutely need this win. Minnesota, here's the crazy thing, though. Even if they don't win this game, it's okay. They're not expected to win this game. They weren't even expected to be remotely near where they are going into this game. They don't mind going. They don't mind going
wins this year. They weren't even expected to have half the wins they have this year.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It is truly amazing. It is, and this is why the NFL is so great. And by the way, look how top heavy the league is this year. Yeah. You have. Look how good the NFC is. Look how good the AFC is. All right. 7 minutes left. Perfect time for seven storylines going into week 18. Hard to believe, the last week of the regular season. By the way, if we do another show this week, waiting all day for Sunday night, which we're practically waiting all week for Sunday night for this game.
Yeah.
Preview of the Vikings and the Lions. By the way, it's going to be, whew. If you thought Mike Tirico nailed the open to this week's Sunday night game, just wait till next week. In Detroit. Okay. First question I have for you, and we'll try to answer this unbiased, if you will. Who wins the AFC's number 7 seed?
I think it's going to end up being the Broncos.
Okay.
Just because of the amount of guys that Casey's going to rest. I think the Broncos have worked too hard for this to end that particular way. Obviously, I would like it to be the Bengals. Of course, we both would. But I just think the Broncos have worked too hard for this, and I think the Chiefs are going to be sitting so many guys that I think the Broncos are going to have to win a hard-fought game. But I think I think they're going to win that game and get the 7th seed.
They should have beaten Kansas City in Week 10 with that blocked field goal.
Mm-hmm.
I think Denver does get it too. And I'll say this. I know we want the Bengals to be in. I think a lot of America wants the Bengals to be in for Joe Burrow to get. I mean, if Joe Burrow gets in, the quarterbacks in the playoffs this year are as good as it's ever been.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the thing, though. If the Bengals don't get in and the Broncos do, I think that's still good for the NFL because I love Bo Nix. I think he's really, really good.
Yeah,
by the way, Bengals at Broncos next year. Dick Ebersol, if you're listening, Sunday Night Football.
Dick Ebersol might want to pick that one up. I think the people at ESPN might want to pick that up too.
I was thinking that. I was thinking that. Either way, it'd be a great primetime game. You saw the game this year.
Oh,
I mean, I was there, and let me tell you, it was unbelievable. It was a great game.
And I think, and this is a completely different tangent. I'm going to touch on this very quickly. Bengals first half of the season next year, top heavy primetime slate. That's what
Wouldn't be shocked. Would not be shocked, especially if San Francisco's on the schedule.
Oh boy, gee, Detroit's on the schedule. Green Bay, Lambeau trip, Viking. Let's keep going. We could go on a different.
Let's spread it out. They did that with the Niners this year, and they spread it out. Okay, so we both think Denver. Bo Nix will be great in the playoffs too. Are we sure the NFC South is a lock for Tampa Bay?
I think it's about as close as it gets to a lock until they play Sunday. Tampa last time they played New Orleans, they totaled 51 points, I believe. It was like 51-27.
Yeah, it was.
I think Tampa's going to be determined. I think they're going to have a chip on Baker Mayfield has a chip on their shoulder. I think the team's have a chip on their shoulder. I think they're going to get the win pretty handily against New Orleans.
I agree with you. They don't play games on paper. New Orleans has played really hard for interim head coach Darren Rizzi, minus what you saw Monday night against Green Bay. I agree with you. Tampa Bay will win this division. Who would you rather play, though, if you're an NFC wildcard team? Tampa, Atlanta, or the Rams?
Who would I rather play? Okay.
Between those three, because Atlanta's still alive, and I included them in this question. I was going to say just Tampa Bay or LA, but, crazy things have happened.
Yeah. It's a tough one. I'll look at it from the negative standpoint, positive standpoint real quick. If Eagles don't have Jalen Hurts, again, they've shown they can win, but if they have, if an elite quarterback walks in there, it's a different story. Rams, if they don't pick up the offense, okay. Tampa Bay, I think Tampa Bay is still on a heater. I would go Rams, like we mentioned earlier. I think I'd rather play the Rams, but then again, the lineage of Sean McVay, Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, I would still say I'd rather go play Los Angeles and try to get this thing done. It'll be tough though. It's a tough decision. Really
I would agree with you on the Rams, but I keep thinking about Tampa Bay. And I just think they caught Philly at the absolute right time last year that might have been a little luck involved.
Yeah, and sometimes when you get hot, the gas could run out if you don't refill. And
correct.
They could end up being on that path sometime. I don't think Tampa's going to make it to the conference championship or anything like that, but
I will say this. One really good team, and I'm talking a division winner, is going to get knocked out wildcard weekend.
Oh, easy.
I don't know who it is, but one team is going to.
There's going to be a shock. There's going to be like a shock. I think it's. I'll change my opinion on that, but yes, I believe that's going to happen. Okay. A really good division team will lose. I agree with that.
I know we're almost short on time here. Real quick, are we just assuming Houston is one and done?
I think we are, but if they play Pittsburgh, I think they beat them.
Really?
Yeah, I
can see that though.
We've seen it before with Pittsburgh where they've gotten they had a great season until mid-December and then they just fell off. Houston's defense is good enough to stop the Pittsburgh offense, and if CJ Stroud can find a little bit of what he had last year, I think Houston, if they play Pittsburgh, could beat Pittsburgh. If they play the Chargers, I don't think they're beating them.
Here's a nerdy on NFL stat for you. The Texans have played the 4:30 game on wildcard weekend every year they've been in the playoffs as a franchise. I don't know. From what I've seen, and what's really sad is ever since Tank Dell got hurt, I mean, we wish him all the best.
Oh, yeah.
They just have not looked like the same team. So I'm going to say yes, they are one and done. Do you worry about Lamar Jackson's playoff pass going into this year's playoffs?
A little bit, I do. Just considering that it's still there. I mean, he would have to go to Buffalo. He'd have to go to Kansas City. If he stays a 3 seed and wins the playoff game, more than likely go to Buffalo, more than likely, go to KC. But I'd be a little concerned in that regard, but I still think he's going to play great football. It just depends on, can he play great football in the crunch time scenario with the lights brightest on him, with the Lombardi trophy not too far away from him.
If the game doesn't go according to their plan, I would be worried there. But I also am, just because, like you said, it is there. He's 2-4. Is it all on him? No, but it also is on him. So I do worry about that. Do you think the Bengals can win in the playoffs if they get in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If they get hot, I think they can make the NFC Championship game. I think they can.
Okay. Last question is a good one. Which head coaches, if any, are coaching their last game with their current team this week?
Oh God, I gotta look at the schedule real quick with what's going on. I think wow, this is an interesting list. From what has been coming on with New England, the Gerard Mayo thing, I don't think a lot of people are too fond of what's happening in New England. I personally don't think they're going to can him this early, but because they have the rookie quarterback and everything else. I think Doug Peterson did Doug Peterson get fired, or am I dreaming? Like, did he get fired already or no?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay, so I think he's going to get fired. I think he will.
I think he will.
I think Mike McCarthy's going to. I think McCarthy's going to as well.
Okay, so you think McCarthy?
I agree with Dable too.
Dable, Kevin Stefanski.
Yes, as time's going on, I believe. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, 2-time NFL Coach of the Year, but it's like,
Chase, they suck offensively.
They're terrible. I know.
They suck. They have no plan.
They have no plan. They just restructure. There's restructuring Watson's deal. Myles Garrett, the door's pretty close.
Yeah.
He's pretty close to walking out.
I'll add Antonio Pierce.
Yeah.
Here's another interesting one.
Not good. Yep.
Kyle Shanahan.
I knew you were going there.
I'm gonna have to save that for later this week, because that's a very interesting topic.
We might have to spend an entire 10 minutes on that topic. I'll leave that one there.
Okay. Right. I know we both got to run, but good first episode. Great game last night, Falcons Commanders. Well, we got to, if there's the word that does it justice, on Sunday night, which we'll be back hopefully later this week. Chase, I know you're looking forward to Bearcats basketball this week. Kansas State tonight, Arizona at home on Saturday. We got Monday Night Football tonight, Lions 49ers. I mean, we got college football playoff quarterfinals tomorrow and Wednesday. Are you calling any games this week for Bearcats Media?
Uncertain about Saturday against Arizona. I'm either probably going to call the Arizona game or the Kansas game.
Okay.
Not entirely sure yet.
All right. That's all good stuff. This has been the Waitin' All Day for Sunday Night podcast with my co-host, Chase Younts. I'm Alex Frank. You can refer to me as Frankie, my stage name, if you wish. Thank you for listening. We will be back hopefully later this week, looking ahead to Week 18 Sunday Night Football and the entire Week 18 slate. Have a very happy New Year, Chase. Happy New Year to you. Enjoy this time, this holiday season with your families, and we will be back later this week on the Waitin' All Day for Sunday Night podcast.